Raise your fists together. I am somebody. I may be poor, but I am somebody.
Red and yellow, brown, black, and white. We're all precious in God's sight. Everybody is somebody. Stop the violence. Save the children. Stop bullying. Save the children.
Hold your head high. Stick your chest out. You can make it. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive.
This is Bishop Tavis Grant, the Acting National Executive Director of the Rainbow Push Coalition. I want to thank you for joining us for our weekly Saturday morning forum. You know, here we bring to you insightful information and engagement, and really a time for you to become involved in the fastest growing social justice movement on the planet. Listen, one of the challenges we have following Reverend Jesse Jackson is learning how to make a mark and not leave a scar. You know, Dr. King in his final years dedicated himself deliberately to fighting three things: militarism, poverty, and racism. Today, we remember that and we commemorate that with the work of Reverend Jesse Jackson in this patchwork, this collaboration called the Rainbow Push Coalition. You know, as we fight political injustice, economic injustice, food injustice, and fight for those who have no voice and are invisible in this society, it becomes important to you and I to make sure that we do one thing, and that is keep hope alive. You know, as we look at the integration and the migration of African Americans in this democracy, we know, as a matter of fact, we are free, but we are not equal. This is the reason why Reverend Jackson spent this time exposing, eradicating, and making a very conscious attempt to erase student loan debt, exposing the exploitation in education. It's a $140 billion industry. The fastest growing sector in banking is student loan debt servicing, from those who make the loans, who manage the loans, and then sell the debt to collectors who go after. The average loan for an African American student is nearly $60,000 generationally, not accounting the penalties and the interest associated with it. So as we talk about keeping the dream alive, as we talk about empowering and engaging and enlisting you to be a part of this social justice movement, it becomes an imperative for you to know how vital it is for you to be a part of what we're doing. You know, in America today, it is such a tremendous challenge with the stress and strain and struggle that people have every day in workplaces that are inhumane and unhealthy, those who are making low to no wages, and then those who are uninsured and who are not just unemployed, but underemployed, working in places nearly 2 times the rate of their white counterparts. It becomes really, really important for you to help us keep this message, this movement, and the momentum behind it as we are keeping hope alive. This work today becomes our goal, our quest, and our mission as we each and every week bring this content to you in one way or another. You know, feeding over 300,000 meals, servicing students all over the country, and then responding to the daily calls of people just like you who need help in one way or another, who may not be able to afford a doctor, cannot afford a lawyer, and cannot afford basic services. We do this every day. This is the quest and the dream and the hope that we do each and every day, and it's because people like you who invest, contribute, and support us, not just financially, but with your time and your talent. And so I want to thank you once more and again on behalf of Reverend Jesse Jackson, and I want to thank you for helping us keep hope alive.
For those of you who missed the annual Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Scholarship Breakfast sponsored by Push Excel, this is our 33rd annual. I know you couldn't make it. You sent your prayers, you sent your contributions, some of you, but we want you to see what we were able to showcase all of the Push Excel programs. You'll see some of our STEM programs where we're teaching artificial intelligence. We're teaching them how to design and program robots. We're teaching students how to produce what you call this, not only artificial intelligence, but we're teaching them about how they can design cities and build buildings using technology. It's just a great program. You're going to just see a little bit of that, and then we're going to show you our performers. We had timeless gifts, some of the best singers in the country. We had our oratorical scholars. I mean, some of the best speakers ever, started at a 5-year-old and up. And then we showcase jazz sinfonetta, young people playing all kinds of musical instruments. We wanted you to see the possibility and the potential that young people have when we invest in them. And so this is Push Excel 2.0. We want you to know that every Saturday we will be teaching our children virtual history, using our virtual history curriculum. We're going to be making sure that our young people are fully engaged in technology. We want to make sure that their parents are able to deal with the technology. We're going to teach financial literacy, civics education. And then I know you're saying, well, what about advocacy? We're doing that too. Dr. Sonia Whitaker will be leading policy discussions, not just for educators, but for parents. You need to know what educational policies we're working on. One of them is student loan debt. We support President Biden's beginning of a student loan debt forgiveness program. 21 attorney generals across the U.S., state attorney generals are supporting that Biden's plan to reduce student loan debt. We're going to be pushing for more ways to eliminate student loan debt. And then we're looking at what does it mean to have quality education in public schools? What does it mean to go to school and you are homeless? What does it mean that we should do to invest in these cities and in these suburbs and in these school districts all across America so that every child, including homeless students, have access to high quality public education? We'll be talking about what policies we want to have implemented at the state and federal level for homeless students. We have so much to cover. I don't have any more time. Watch what we're doing programmatically, and then I want you to join us. How can you join us? You can invest in Push Excel. Every one of you watch this broadcast. You may have a child in your family. You may have a grandchild. You may have a friend's child. We do scholarships. We do financial literacy training. We do all sorts of civics education. We're doing a lot of things, and we want to make it a national program. We're asking churches, we're asking organizations, you partner with us so that every child gets a high quality public education. And what can you do individually, or what can you do in your family collectively? You can make a contribution right now to Push for Excellence. It's tax exempt, and it will help a child get a scholarship. It will help a student become a part of our oratorical society and have the kind of tools they need. It will help a child be a part of our STEM program. You can buy them a STEM kit for 2023. And so I know you're wondering, what can you do to help? It's real simple. All you have to do is text 41444, text the word Push Excel to 41444. Text the word Push Excel, PUSHEXCEL, to 41444. Whatever contribution you make, large or small, we'll be grateful. Thank you so much. We keep pushing for you.
Sing praises to the King, for he is the King of Kings. We sing praises to the King, for he's the King of Kings. We sing praises to the King, for he is the King of Kings. We sing praises to the King, for he's the King of Kings. Give him glory, for he's the King of Kings. Give him glory, for he's the King of Kings. Give him glory, for he's the King of Kings. Give him glory, for he's the King of Kings.
We sing praises to the King, for he is the King of Kings. We sing praises to the King, for he's the King of Kings. We sing praises to the King, for he is the King of Kings. We
Reverend Jesse L. Jackson Sr. conceptualized Push Excel in 1975 to unite parents, teachers, community members, and popular personalities around the cause of motivating children to stay in school and to push for excellence.
And I am somebody. My mind is a pearl.
Each year for the past 32 years, we gather on the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. holiday, not only to raise scholarship dollars for deserving students who can't afford college, but to shine a light on personalities whose life and work inspires student achievement and parallels our cause.
When Reverend Jackson gets in the classroom or whenever he's giving a lecture or when he's walking in the hallways of universities and or schools, he has 5 A's that he reminds the young people about. Yeah, these 5 A's of excellence. Number 1 is attendance. That's right, A for attendance, making sure that you're in school. Secondly, it's paying attention. That A is attention. Thirdly, it is the atmosphere. When you show up to school, what do you bring to those classrooms? Then last but not least, it's your attitude and your achievement. The right attitude is what helps you to achieve.
In order to better understand why these programs work, we need to get behind the scenes to see how Push Excel motivates and mobilizes young people and the communities around them.
Today at Virginia Union, for all of you young men, Stefan got accepted.
The first time a young person walks onto a college campus and suddenly feels that this could be their future, amazing things begin to happen. Horizons expand, self-confidence grows, and opportunities feel within grasp. For the past 21 years, Push Excel has sponsored tours for thousands of students to visit historically Black colleges and universities. These tours show young people what's possible, how to set their goals, and how to achieve them.
Keep on Black!
Hey, Black child!
Let us remember that there's a creative force in this universe.
The Push Excel Inspirational Speech Oratorical Program, shepherded for many years by the late Orly Saunders, was designed to focus young people on the power of eloquent, persuasive speech. Both Dr. King and Reverend Jackson credited their phenomenal leadership abilities to speech contests they entered as children.
We've got young people with our oratorical contest as young as 6 years old. So while we basically focus on the college bound, we're also interested in the pathways and a pipeline to college. We are fully engaged in the process of making educational opportunities available to young marginalized people.
Push Excel launched its STEM Enrichment Academy in 2011 in partnership with tech leaders. They built a Saturday program with a curriculum that includes web design, app design, robotics, coding, building video games, and the mechanics of flying drones. Students who are part of the Push Excel programs show improved grades and test scores in math and science.
There are critical issues impacting public education today. And as a direct result of that, Push for Excellence is committed to addressing the issues that I will describe on a proactive basis as opposed to a reactive basis. And we're doing so through the launching of our Critical Thinking series, which is focused on shaping America's education agenda. Throughout our Critical Thinking series, we invite experts and practitioners from a local level as well as the national level to engage in critical think tank discussions about issues that impact Black and brown students on a day-to-day basis.
I think that we have to get the Push Excel ideology in every public school district in America. Teachers have to have high expectations. Parents must dream beyond what they can afford to push their children to something better.
If it wasn't for Dr. King and Reverend Jackson fighting for education, civil rights, and economic stability in Black communities, I would not have been able to grow up in the neighborhood I did, attend the school of my choice, or enjoy the diversity that I did in the classroom. I'm loving my career choice and the fact that I had choices.
Since Push Excel began its scholarship program, they have awarded over $10 million to deserving students enrolled in colleges and universities across the country.
Everybody has a right to education, and not having to worry about the financial burden that can potentially come with pursuing your education is a blessing. I personally was able to receive this scholarship more than once, and I am forever grateful to Rainbow Push because without this scholarship, I would not have been able to attend school.
The scholarship that I received made it possible to pay off one of my loans, and that's something that I'm very appreciative for. Thank you to anybody that made the Orly Sanders Scholarship possible, because you gave students the opportunity to further their academic careers and reach their personal goals, and that's something that we will always remember and we will be grateful for.
Being selected as a Jesse Jackson Fellow has truly changed my life. It has vastly expanded my network, connecting me with numerous amazing friends and mentors who I will lean on for years to come. Also, introduced me to the company of Toyota. I never saw myself working for a car manufacturer. However, after experiencing the culture, environment, and people, I realized Toyota is a place I could be for years to come.
I really want to take this time out to thank you all so much for all of the effort and resources you have poured not only into the organization but into these scholarships. Because of these resources, I am able to get that higher level education and invest back into myself the same way you all have invested in me.
You can support more of the dream by contacting Push Excel.
Thank you so much for joining us and helping to make a better future today and for generations to come.
Thank you.
What did Reverend Martin Luther King do? He went to high school and graduated at the age of 15. He was prolific. Then he went on to Morehouse College. He was taught by African American teachers and ministers. He was the fourth generation son of African American ministers. He was maladjusted towards segregation and discrimination. He saw the universality of God. He went to Boston College to further advance his study in the seminary and came back to the South because he said he had an obligation. He could have been a commentator on television. He could have written many more books. He could have gone out on the speeching circuit and said eloquent words to razzle the crowds. But no, he went back to Selma. He went back to Montgomery. He went back because he had unfinished business. He wanted to break the slaveocracy of America. There have been 3 revolutions in American history. And revolution is defined by how we change relations amongst people. So we can credit George Washington with having created a revolution. We were no longer a colony of the British government. We became an independent nation under George Washington, a revolution. Abraham Lincoln created and led a revolution by changing the relationship between the North and the South when a part of our nation wanted to have succession, a revolution. Reverend Martin Luther King, by the passing of the Civil Rights Act and the sacrifice in Montgomery, Alabama, and brought down the walls of segregation and made sure that we had the right to vote, he changed the relationships between blacks and whites where we were all recognized in God's eyes and in the eye of the law as one people. What did he do? He makes us cherish and love the America we have today. So I cringe when I hear the words of the founding fathers. And they talk about George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and Hancock and many others, and they leave out the name the Reverend Martin Luther King. After 244 years from 1619 until 1863, African Americans could not have a name. You were chattel slavery. You were property. And after slavery was abolished in the early 1800s, then we started having slave farms to breed because they thought they could create enough domestic production of African bodies. Why do I share this with you? Because we have to lay the predicate where the problem began in order to get to the solution. I don't want to fix the blame, I want to fix the problem. But when people don't understand the history, it's hard to heal and go forward.
So our community is ailing today from the same maladies and pathologies of previous generations. You didn't do it, we inherited, but together we can fix it. What did he do? By ensuring that we all had the right to vote, to saying that we were born American citizens, and no matter your race, your religion, your creed, you are somebody at the polls. Let me tell you, I had a big day the other day in Washington, and I'm going to leave you all with some of those anecdotal stories. But Congressman Danny Davis, his office is the same distance from here to parking in the furthest point in the parking lot here and coming back up here. That's how far his office is from mine. He came over to visit my office. This is the senior member in our delegation, and he honored me by coming to my office. And there he sat in the office and he shared with me, as I looked at a book I have on my shelf by Congressman John R. Lynch, the first African American to be elected into the Congress from Mississippi, and it has his autograph. And I've got a few pieces of memorabilia that I keep close so I remember. John R. Lynch started in Mississippi. The title of his book is The End of Reconstruction. And I saw Congressman Davis standing there. And if you can believe this or not, there has never been an African American elected to the Congress from the state of Arkansas. To this very day. So Congressman Davis, over the many years, every time there's a glimmer of hope, he goes back to Arkansas to try to get a representative elected. But Congressman Davis sat in my office and he shared with me a story, again, that we must remember. Growing up sharecropping, picking cotton, Congressman Davis. He said he went to school December through April in a one-room classroom. Then he had to go out into the fields and work, and then there was another month that they could have school. This man that knows poetry and law and is a legislator was educated in a one-room school and had the same teacher every year from kindergarten through 8th grade in my lifetime. And for Congressman Davis to come to my office and walk the corridors of power to teach me, to show me, I am forever grateful, Congressman Davis. I want you to know it wasn't that long ago and not that far away. I didn't have to see the indignities of having segregated bathrooms. When Reverend Martin Luther King gave that magnificent speech in 1963, and I Have a Dream, do you realize there was only one elected official that was African American in the entire South? Do you realize when he gave that speech in 1963, he could not go to one public restroom anywhere in the South? So we see the football games and the basketball and we cheer. But ladies and gentlemen, we have unfinished business. Who Reverend Martin Luther King is? He is a reverend, he's a minister. He was called by God. So I take a little bit of annoyance when I hear people call him just simply Dr. King or Martin Luther King. Why is that so important? Because if you were ever a senator and now you're the president, come on, you're forever regarded as a president. If you were ever a cardinal and now you're the Pope, what? You're forever regarded as the Pope. If you are given the choice between calling somebody reverend and doctor, I went to Chicago public schools, but they taught us grammar and salutations. And the salutations, they told us that the reverend, the vocal, the calling from God, is higher than being called the doctor on earth. He is the Reverend Martin Luther King. His life would make no sense to me if he weren't a reverend. Why would he sacrifice? Why would he fight for us? Why would he want to see God's will be done? Why would he not want to stuff his pockets and make money and be like so many people that are so selfish? Why would he give his last measure of his life to give to us if he weren't a reverend? This isn't another day, and let me tell you, and I do believe that those that are white supremacists have a hard time adjusting their minds and their lips to say reverend in front of an African American, because that is America's minister. Show me an American minister that's done more in his lifetime than Reverend Martin Luther King. We've got to re-indoctrinate ourselves. Reverend Martin Luther King told us, move away from pious irrelevancies and sanctimonious trivialities. The man wrote 5 books. If you want to honor God, you should what? Read the Bible. If you want to flatter an author, read their book. If you want to honor Reverend Martin Luther King, he's got 5 books: Stride Towards Freedom, Strength to Love, The Sound of the Trumpet, Where Do We Go From Here? And one more I just forgot. He's got 5 books. Read his books. Don't go for one speech. That doesn't define the man and who he is. What did he do? He brought down the walls of segregation. He uplifted our right to vote. And let me tell you before I conclude, I can't thank you all enough for this journey of a lifetime. It was so improbable that I would ever run and that I would ever be a public speaker. I started off in what they called EH. That stands for extra help. Now they call it special needs or something, but I'm in that class. I went to school on 31st and Rhodes, just down the block from here. I had a speech pathologist that could come into the classroom. And while other children got to go to recess and I wanted to play, I had to go back to the kitchen, the cafeteria, to do some exercises on sh, t, th, k, r. Learn to unbridle my tongue. So I believe in education and the potential of every human being. Our children need the resources, and that's why you're here. And if I couldn't speak, I couldn't be with you today. So I've got a fight and a passion for me for every child that simply needs the resources to make King's work a reality right here on earth. And Reverend Martin Luther King just didn't want us to have personal salvation. What did he do? He's the minister that fought for social salvation. When a nation has gone wrong, he says that the nation's budget is a moral document. It says what our priorities are. When we spend more money on missiles and bombs and not on children and seniors, the nation is going adrift. We spent $6 trillion in Afghanistan and Iraq with no end in sight. The nation's going adrift. And as I sat on that floor for the start of the 118th Congress, I'll tell you a story about it. When I was a child, I wanted to have a badge and a gun. I wanted to be tough. I wanted to be able to get out of tickets and have some power on your hip. I wanted to have a gun and a badge. But I remember in 1983 with my father when he started to run. And then I remember in 1987 when I was 19 years of age. We went to Washington, D.C., and Dad says, we're going to jail. I was 19 years of age, and I was in college. I got my grades up. I was trying to get a summer internship, and Dad said, No, we're going to go for a free South Africa protest and for free Nelson Mandela. And I said, Nelson who? Free what? In our lifetime, there was a majority black country where the minority controlled it, and that was called normal. That's the world Nelson Mandela grew up in. So we went to there in March, and we got arrested, and we spent the night in that DC jail. That was the most embarrassing day of my life, being arrested and put in jail for free South Africa. But lo and behold, I said, my father says, Jonathan, don't confuse with what you do for your life versus what you do for a living. You don't know what God has in store for you. That was 37 years ago. 37 years later in the summer, this past summer, I get a call from the President Ramaphosa, the President of the Republic of South Africa. And he asked that I introduce him. And I just said simply, President Ramaphosa, I remember when the ANC was called a terrorist organization. And you all met at our dining room table and in the kitchen on 400 T Street. My mother, my sister, my father, my brother, we all went to jail for free South Africa. 37 years later, you're the president of the Republic of South Africa, and I'm the Democratic nominee from the 1st Congressional District from the state of Illinois. Might isn't right, but right is might. We were on the right side of history then. Fast forward, as I sat down on the floor of that Congress and you saw what happened closer to the well after they went through 15 rounds of voting. By the way, that's the speaker's easiest vote, is to get selected by his party. So if you enjoyed it last week, get some popcorn because it ain't over. And I went to the caucus meeting after our first round of voting, and they shared with us what's going on. And I said, I'm a freshman. I don't know how this policy and procedures and protocols and Robert's rules works, but I'm learning fast. And I said, can we please say our speaker nominee, Hakeem Jeffries' whole name? Some people gave me some resistance. Some complied. I said, but can we say his whole name? And then people would ask me, why do you stand up every time you say his name and say the Honorable Hakeem Jeffries? Some thought it was a joke. And I said, as I sit here in this room, this beautiful room, and I see founded 1789, the Congress of the United States of America, as my mind went back over 234 years and said, this is the first time we've ever been able to say in this chamber, on this mic, in session, an African American's name for the highest office. This is a formal occasion and a solemn event for me. So every time they ask for me to recognize his vote, Brother Bobby, Brother Davis, I know when we were here in 1789, the term was boy. Then if you were over 50, you were uncle. But Mr. and Mrs. Jeffries named their baby boy Hakeem Jeffries. Now that he's a federal representative, you put a handle on that name. That's the Honorable Hakeem Jeffries. Because I remember when my grandfather told me the story of the man that he worked 3 jobs for in Greenville, South Carolina. And when he said, Charlie Henry, boy, he said, that's not my name. And he says, you come here. And he was trying to embarrass my grandfather and told me to kick him. My grandfather gave him his keys, not knowing where he was going to eat again. He says, no, you're not going to do that to me. And that man took my grandfather's name down to the recruiting station and had him placed in World War II for being insubordinate and talking back. So after 234 years, the 1st District demanded and expected me to say the name, the Honorable Hakeem Jeffries. I sat on that center aisle so you could see me. Many people told me before I left, some of the older ladies that grab your hand so tight that they won't let it go, and you start hurting. And they remind me of my grandmother Gertrude, Gertie. And they said, don't forget us. I see how politics goes from retail, the family members you have in your living room and those that support you from the beginning, to wholesale, where the big money comes in and people want to have influence over you. Southside in Chicago, I see you. I'm not going to forget you. Reverend Ackery, I wanted to have a badge and a gun. And I remember the words of my father, you don't know what the Lord has in store for you. I want every child in here to know, you don't know what the Lord has in store for you. You can't count how many apples are in each seed, but you can count how many seeds are in each apple. People call me a congressman, but in my heart of hearts, I'm just another man in the Congress. I think inverted sometimes. I didn't get that badge and didn't get that gun. But when I got sworn into the 118th Congress, I got something bigger than my wildest imagination. Since 1789, first let me tell you, they mentioned Representative Hakeem Jeffries' name 212 times, and the speaker had to reconfirm it to make sure they had it right. So therefore, we sat on there and I heard his name 6,360 times. And people said, were you bored? I said, no, I was just as happy. Sitting in this high back leather chair, and there's some refreshments in the back, beautiful light, smart people, all these people I see on television. Some are as strange in life as they are on television. I felt like I was with P.T. Barnum sitting next to the greatest show on earth. But what did I get? After I realized in 1789, Brother Chewy, Ms. Chakowski, Ms. Harris, Ms. Kelly, Brother Danny, Dahlia, there have been 12,505 representatives to go to the House of Congress since 1789. And they have written the laws that we all live under since 1789. 12,505. There have been 176 African Americans to ever have the right to vote on that floor. So on that day, when I raised my hand, and the good Lord gave me this card, that's bigger than a badge and a gun. This card determines policing around the nation. This card determines gun laws around the nation. This card can determine our access to education around the nation. This card can determine our rights to vote and be protected around the nation. This card that you've given me is our voice to go to the floor of the Congress, to go before the well, and to speak our mind, to tell our truth. In God's name, amen.
My name is John Baptiste Mitchell, and I'm 5 3/4. And today I'll be reciting a poem. I dream a world, my Langston Hughes. I dream a world where man, no other man will scorn. For love will bless the earth, and peace is past adored. I dream a world where all who know free freedom's way will greed no longer saps the soul, or Alice blanks our day. A world I dream where black or white, whatever race you be, will share the bounties of the earth, and every man is free, where richness will hang its head, 'tis the need of all mankind, of such I dream my world. And now I would like to introduce my fellow orators who will be reciting the poem, What Will Dr. Martin Luther King Say by Leonel Caesar.
What would Dr. King say?
What would Dr. King say? What would Dr. King say?
Ooh, now what would Dr. King say? What would Dr. King say?
What would Dr. King say? What would Dr. King say? What would Dr. King say? What would Dr. King say? What would Dr. King say? What would Dr. King say?
What would Dr. King say?
In 55 years since his death, it would seem he'd have comments about the state of his dream. What would Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. say if he were present and alive today?
There would be many issues to address: economics, education, and yes, the moral status of our nation, healthcare, poverty, and race relations.
He would talk with the young. He would talk with the young and the youth and the children, and walk above and walk among with the children.
Nonviolence would be his priority when questioning unjust authority. From his past, it's easy to speculate his views on love and his stance on hate.
So listen to pundits as they surmise what this world would look like through the dreamer's eyes. Where there is injustice, he'd want it to stop. The visionary from the mountains up.
This leader who has seen the promised land would staunchly advocate on a moral stand. He would commend progress, but not ignore the obligation to do much and more. What would Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. say if he were present and alive today?
He would smile to see we have a president of African American descent.
But the prison industry complex grew, and local revenue, and we destabilized communities by shipping their industries overseas.
Divisive feelings on integration, polarized factions on immigration. Forgot the historical manuscript, enmity to the poor in a new script.
Where faith does not compel us to embrace specific members of the human race. Face our neighbors with reality and equality and not mythology.
How would human trafficking break his heart as racial injustice tears us apart? Bondage, child predators, and kidnapping, the violence in the neighborhood sacking.
Our strength. More violence, more eulogies, more hatred leads to more casualties. And we exist in a reality without cruelty. What would
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. say if he were present and alive today? He would note knowledge proliferation, yet many minds turn from education. While he would acknowledge improvements made, it would sadden him that we are afraid of each other at an alarming rate, as many are training their hearts to hate.
He would weigh in on the raucous debate on flags and logos as symbols of hate.
Atrocities done in religion's name.
People have abandoned conscience and shame. We live in a world where anything goes.
Mortality changes as the wind blows.
But there is hope that the dream is alive.
As long as there is hope, we will still strive. The marches for voter registration
have been nullified with legislation.
As newer barriers are put in place.
That's claimed to have nothing to do with race.
But they are designed to restrict the vote.
When he was in prison, the words he wrote to reach us and beseech us from the jail.
So we as a nation would not fail.
What
would Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. say if he were present and alive today?
in treating disease, but Dr. King would not be pleased. For all forms of inequality, he once stated without apology, injustice in healthcare and poverty is the most shocking and inhumane.
But forces are blocking character and not the color of skin from being part of our discipline.
In equal rights, we have made strides, but with justice, injustice, and bias, we still refuse to strive.
We should have made it much further along in fighting for rights and righting the wrongs.
The notion that things are not as they were are shattered by a racial slur.
Proximity to how things used to be should stop us short of claiming victory.
What would Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. say if he were present and alive today?
Dr. King, the visionary. Dr. King, the missionary. Dr. King, the speaker. Dr. King, the preacher. And Dr. King, the dreamer. They tried to kill the dream when they shot down Dr. King. But the dream he speaks remains alive. In spite of all the hatred, rage, and strife, it lives in the hearts of all who try to find a better life. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is an inspiration to all of us to keep dreaming, keep climbing, and to keep making a difference.
I was born by the river in a little tent. Oh, and just like the river, I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes it will.
Well, you can see the work of Reverend Jeanette Wilson, our National Executive Director of Push Excel, and an amazing speech by the 1st Congressional District Congressman Jonathan Luther Jackson, and then those students who displayed such great talent and such great excellence. This is what Push Excel is all about. And when you couple that with the work of Reverend Jesse Jackson, then you can see that this is a heavy lift. And I want to thank so many of you. I look at the report every week. I pray over these who give and those who share and those who contribute. I share the report with Reverend Jackson, and it brings great joy to him to know that you are supporting this movement called the Rainbow Push Coalition. And yet you can do so much. You know, you saw in that footage, you saw students had received scholarship and resources and support. But guess what? This is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week operation. It's water to Flint and aid to Ferguson and assistance to those around the country like Jackson, Mississippi, and like Selma, Alabama. We're about to launch Hope Alive for Selma, Alabama, the heartbeat and the bedrock of our civil rights movement. We're going to make sure that Selma recovers. Guess what? You can help us right now. You can text the word PUSH to 41444. You can go to any one of the platforms at the bottom of the screen. You can go to www.rainbowpush.org, or you can dial that number. It's an amazing number, 773-FREEDOM on your dial, and the operator is waiting to receive your call. You can mail it in. You can do mobile banking. You can do the swipe. There's so many opportunities for you to give, and I want to challenge as I have on many occasions. A $60 contribution, commemorating the March on Washington, a $60 contribution would help us. It's almost 2 memberships. But guess what? That contribution helps us in such a phenomenal way. Maybe it's a bag of food. Maybe it's a coat in our coat giveaway. Maybe it's responding to a senior in crisis. Maybe it is helping a student on a college campus stay in school. Your contribution right now makes a phenomenal difference. And you can't be where we are and you can't do what we can do, but you can help us get there. So guess what? PUSH, though that word, PUSH, 41444 or 773 Freedom on your dial, or go to www.rainbowpush.org. I know it's such a small amount, but it means so very much. I've seen those who have given 600. I've seen those who've given 1,000, even those who've given 5,000. I want you to really consider, as we commemorate Dr. King and the work of Reverend Jesse Jackson, what it would mean for you to go to your card, to swipe it, to give, to share and contribute, and know that you're making a huge difference as we are keeping hope alive. Guess what? I want to thank you in advance, and I'll see you real soon.
Be sure to join us on our Saturday morning forum on next Saturday. We will continue to bring great content to you. And be sure to like our Facebook page and share when you're watching live. And if you're watching us on YouTube, because that's what you prefer to do, be sure to subscribe to our page so you can continue to get up-to-date information about what is occurring in our organization. We need you. We don't just need your financial support, but we need your hands. We need your participation. So we're asking that you seriously consider joining Rainbow Push, and you can do so by going to our website at rainbowpush.org. Keep hope alive.
We are sanctuary. We are a sanctuary.
When I think of Rainbow Push, I think of 2 words: social justice.
Education advocacy.
Political empowerment.
Freedom and equality.
Corporate partnership.
Stop the violence. Save the children. Don't get in. Shut it down. If we don't get in, shut it down.
Political change.
Inclusion, evolution. Progress, justice.
Jesse Jackson.
Keep hope. Keep hope alive. Alive. Keep hope. Keep hope alive. Alive.
We want to be bridges to end these cultural gaps.
We're going forward. By hope. By hope. Not backwards. Not backwards. By fear. By fear.